welcome to Catalyst Energies. Thank you for joining me here. I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome if this is your first time here. It's really nice to be with you, and also welcome back if this is not your first time here. And I really appreciate you being here, and we're all holding space together. So this is episode 4 of a Starseed's viral journey. This is a series that I started to document my personal experience and progress with the COVID-19 virus and the ripple effect that it's having on everybody across the globe. And I'm specifically coming from a perspective as an identified starseed. This is also for people who identify starseeds, light workers, indigos, walk-ins, healers, wanderers, old souls, anybody who believes that this process is more than what it seems on the surface, and that they are here in particular to enact the mission that they came here for as any of those identified roles. So today is April 4th, 2020. It is the 4444 portal. I'm going to try to make this as succinct and concise as possible because there's so much information out there right now. There's so many events that are happening. This is a really, really important day. There's a global meditation, but I've attempted in some ways to make this video beforehand, and it just was not clicking. And I know it's because right now is the time to be releasing this information. So it's been over a week since the last episode. It has been a very rough week, and I know that is across the board for many, many, many people, but I'm going to share my personal experience, what's going on with me, and then we're going to expand on that in terms of the astrology for today, how that fits into the portal, and I'm going to talk about the physical aspects of fear and how they relate to the body, and then we're going to have I'm going to impart to you my personal, I guess, opinion based on what little knowledge I have accumulated over time in the sciences and chemistry. And we're going to talk about the crystalline structure, anchoring into that, and what that actually means from an actual, like, rational scientific perspective, just to give you a way to wrap your mind around if this is new information to you, because it's so important that we're doing it. And right now, if you're, it's a concept that is very available within certain subcultures, especially the light worker starseed community, and it's something that if you don't understand what it means, it could be something that you don't connect with, and it's okay if you don't understand, but I actually have some information that I can share that will, like, put some pieces together about it. So I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as possible, as concise as possible, so that we can all get on with the events of today, which is global meditation, the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction that's happening today, that is opening a huge portal as we embark on the awakening of this planet. But it's been a rough week, so we're going to start with that. So I have had symptoms for about 2 weeks. I live in a state where testing is abysmally not available unless you have underlying health conditions or you have to go to the hospital. And so it's none of those things are an issue for me. I have no availability. I have no way to be tested. So I have no idea if I have it, but the symptoms that I have been tracking for the last 2 weeks definitely fall in line to what are being reported by people. And I'm hearing reports every day from people I know through the internet, like actual people that I know. That's another reason why I'm doing this video or this series, is because it's really important that we are sharing our stories as actual people and not getting all of our information from corporate sponsored news outlets, regardless of your affiliation politically or otherwise. We really need to be talking to each other and sharing our stories. So I've had symptoms. They are finally starting to lift. I had very minor respiratory symptoms. The biggest symptom had been fatigue. Sometimes a headache would come and go, sometimes a sore throat would come and go, but I feel like that I have peaked with that, and it is now starting to taper off on the other side. Doesn't mean that I necessarily feel great. I do feel like I'll be able to start going back to work, and when I say work, I'll be able to start taking one-on-one clients with my distance energy work and astrology again. But this last 2 weeks, I'd say, has been solely focused on getting into my own body. Now, one of the symptoms that has come up in the last 2 days, which I want to talk more about in terms of a collective idea, is that my lower back and especially my kidneys have been really sore last 2 days. And I've started to hear reports from other people that they're experiencing the same thing. I've also seen some articles where they're starting to report that people with people with underlying health issues in general are really susceptible to the impact of the virus, but because the kidneys filter toxins out of the blood, this seems to be where people are really feeling the impact in terms of the organ system besides the lungs. And so I've been having some pain there. There are certain things that I've been doing, obviously focusing my energy work for focusing on nutrition to nourish the kidneys, some herbal remedies in order to nourish my kidneys because they have been working so hard. Because one thing that we're all doing is drinking a lot of fluids to keep our immune system like functioning, and the lymph fluid like full and moving, and all of these things. The kidneys are working so hard. So if you've been symptomatic, if you've tested positive, or even if not, you can if you're starting to feel that lower back pain, and that could be musculoskeletal, it could be a lot of things, but I'm very connected to my body, and I could tell, especially when you look at the cycle of chi. That's something you can easily Google. It shows you that the chi within our bodies, and this is in Chinese medicine, throughout the day, cycle through different organ systems throughout the day. And as we get to the kidney time, it really starts to be aggravated and painful. So I'm taking care of my kidneys. Take care of your kidneys because they're doing so much work. Now, we'll get to that aspect, because in Chinese medicine, all of the organ systems are related to a specific type of emotion, and the kidneys are related to fear, because the energy that's connected to your kidneys is will. And when that is out of balance, the primary emotion that comes up is fear. And obviously that's a huge part of what's going on collectively for all of us, is fear. And so even if you're not, even if you've been asymptomatic, or you've tested negative or whatever, and if you're starting to feel that pain there, especially if you're an empathic person, and as we move along, people are becoming, there's no bypassing this anymore. We're all kind of in it together. And so the fear, the collective fear, our own personal fear, it manifests in our kidneys, and it's so important that we're taking care of them. The element of water, obviously, is primary with the kidneys as well. So nourishing your kidneys, not overtaxing them as much, if you can help it, by balancing out all of the flushing of toxins, because that's really what the kidneys are doing, is flushing the toxins out of your blood system, your circulatory system, out of your blood. So the other big thing that I want to share, and I had a very raw video about it on Facebook, is that my dad's brother, my uncle, who was also my godfather, passed away this week as a result of his complications after contracting COVID-19. Now, he did have underlying respiratory issues that made him very vulnerable, but it happened very quickly. He got sick. He reached out for medical care. They turned him away because he wasn't dire. And then he continued to contact his medical professionals. They finally did test him. He tested positive. They sent him to the ER. They intubated him, and he was gone. He was gone within less than 24 hours of being admitted to the hospital. And of course, if you're watching the news at all, which is, it's a fine line, isn't it? Of being informed and being panicked. Many people are succumbing very quickly. Now, that has been a real challenge to me personally, when you are consuming material that continually shows or continually wants to project that the virus is not as bad as it seems, that it's even a hoax. And I'm not saying that you are not entitled to your opinion, and it's really a lot more layered than just a black or white. But I can tell you that that has triggered me all week, because I am living this situation on many levels now. Not only had I been sick and not able to really get any confirmation of what's happening, and having to really rely on myself. And not to mention the fact that nobody else in my household is showing any symptoms, which is just confusing considering the data. But it's also starting to be reported more and more how asymptomatic people are. And so if you have symptoms or you don't have symptoms, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the factor is. I have my own personal opinions about that, being a sensitive person, being empathic, um, feeling my symptoms a lot more as opposed to being disconnected from my body might have something to do with it. It could be all kinds of stuff. One thing I do want to say is that there is a lot of a narrative out there about keeping your vibration high, and disease can't exist if your vibration is high. And I just want, I feel like I get what that means, obviously, because I am an energy healer and a worker. And so much of this meditation that's going to be happening globally today is about keeping our vibration in love and light and as high as we can. But I feel like it's very dangerous to start pushing that narrative that if you just keep your vibe high enough, you won't get sick, because it's not true. It's whatever's going on is individualized for each of us to experience. And it's not a reflection of you as being a high vibe or not high vibe person. And to have a family member die, and not even be able to be with my family because we are separated by the coasts, I can't travel. They're all in their own homes. They can't be together either. We can't have a service. We can't have a service. We can't. And in terms of death and dying culturally, how important a funeral service, a memorial service is absolutely essential to the process of acceptance and closure in a grief process. And so having that get dragged out, I mean, the feelings of powerlessness and absolute devastation in my family has been huge. So there's so many factors that that we're all asking to deal with, and they're very individualized. And so you have to approach it from a very individualized perspective in terms of what you're dealing with, what's right in front of you, what you're being asked to address within yourself, as opposed to pushing this narrative that if your vibe is high enough you won't get sick, because that's not how it works. Because we still live in these bodies, and we still have to contend with the what is around us, what is within us. And we can work on using our energy toolkit in order to heal, absolutely. But it is dangerous to because if you are thinking that, and then there are plenty of people I know that are very high vibrational, that are identify as a starseed or a light worker. They're doing their work. They are they're enmeshed in this, and they are also getting sick. So just keep that in mind, because I think it's a dangerous narrative about keeping your vibe high. Oh, you're young and you're healthy. It doesn't, there's so many unknowns that if you start connecting to any one of these narratives, whatever they are, it's very possible that you could be holding yourself back from a real healing process. So, but yeah, it's been a rough week. I'm living in the midst of a personal hell right now. I mean, people die. That's not necessarily what I'm worried about, but not being able to have the grieving process with my family, not being able to have closure by having a service, and then being sick on top of it, and being in a situation physically where I do feel like an island. There is nobody can really hold the space for me who are surrounding me, because they're not experiencing it in the same way or even close to what I'm experiencing it. So what I feel gratitude about in that situation, has forced me to go deeper than I ever have, to rely on the deepest part of my spirit more than I ever have, and to not, there's no bypassing this situation. I can't empath out of this anymore. I can't manage the energy around, to feel good. The reality is that I have to show up as myself in situations, and sometimes it's too hard for people to hold space for, because it's so painful and it's just too raw and real, that I've had to take a step back and realize that I am able to gather all the support that I need for myself, in a very deep and emotional way. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. And I know that that's why this is happening. And that's why I'm in the situation that I'm in currently and dealing with all of that. So that's the personal update. I do feel like that I'm moving past. I mean, that can change at any moment. I've heard many reports that people getting better and then all of a sudden not getting, and then getting sick again. But I will say that it's been about 2 weeks, and there has been fluctuation, but I did not take that as a sign that anything was better. So I continued on my self-care regimen, and I think that that has really helped. So, and then taking care of my kidneys. Okay, so that's the personal update about what's going on. So let's talk about, first let's talk about fear. And we talk about the kidneys, because even just talking about it, I can feel it. Like I can feel them kind of being a little aggravated. In Chinese medicine, the kidneys, they're responsible for the element of water, and will and wisdom are wisdom is the highest expression of the kidneys, and the root energy here is will. And when it's out of balance, we experience it as fear. And that's an obvious thing that's happening right now, is the collective fear. Because what is really the opposition to fear? Some people say that it's love, but I think that love is a completely different, is outside of that contrast. I think that you contrast fear with courage, and will is how you gather your courage in order to face fear, right? Because that's an opposition. So you have these two aspects facing each other, possibly pulling on each other. You want to find the balance point. Stepping into your courage is how you face your fear. And this is why it's so important to take care of our kidneys, because there is a limited, and also the kidneys hold the essence of your life. And that in Chinese medicine, that is something that you don't get to replenish. You only get a certain amount in your life, and there's no way to really get more of it. You just have to, if you keep your qi strong and flowing correctly and appropriately, then it will keep you from losing or diminishing that essence. But there's not any way you can fill it back up. It's just something that as you leak it out through things like being engaged with fear, you're losing your essence. Now that makes a lot of sense in terms of like so many people dying, because the fear is so strong about this virus that people are likely just not even leaking. It's just their essence is gushing out because they have given in so deeply to the fear. And there's a lot to be afraid of. I mean, facing your mortality on a global scale is probably the darkest night of the collective soul that we can have, because facing our own mortality is really the ultimate duality and power dynamic that exists. And so, of course, it makes sense. So it's not to say there's a difference between not giving into fear and just thinking that this is not a big deal. And that's another thing that I've noticed, is the narrative of it. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. And it's just like, well, it actually is quite a big deal. Of course it is. This is the catalyst for our global awakening. Of course it's a big deal. So to minimize people's experiences is not helping, that's for sure. But there's a difference between that and not giving into the fear. It's saying the difference is that you recognize that the fear is there, and you strengthen your will by enacting your, courage to face the fear. You face it. You don't ignore it. You don't downplay it. You don't invalidate it. You don't pretend that it's not happening. You gather your courage and your will to face your fear. And this is how we're going to keep, from our essence spilling out of our body and having to leave the body, to exit the body. So if you are sick, it's okay that you're feeling afraid. It's okay that you're feeling whatever you're feeling. That's the other thing I want to address, and I've addressed it in just about everything that I posted recently. It's okay to feel how you're feeling. Your feelings are your navigation system. They tell you, your endocrine system is giving your body the chemical messages that it needs to make decisions. It's okay to feel how you're feeling, especially if you're empathic. You're going to be feeling stuff that's not yours. And that's turning on for a lot of people. You know, as people wake up and like realize that they're empathic, they're going to be feeling it even more. So taking care of your kidneys. What's really great right now is that there is a natural plant that grows all over in the spring called purple dead nettle, which is very good for the kidneys. Now, it is a diuretic as far as I've been told, and my own research. And so just be mindful if you're already consuming things that are diuretics, like a ton of coffee and caffeine, stuff like that. If you're already having a lot of diuretics in your diet, like, you might want to be mindful of that, but you can just collect it out in your yard. It's like a weed. It is a weed. It's been considered a weed, but you collect it and just look it up, purple dead nettle, and how to forage it and how to prepare it. And it can be really supportive for the kidneys. Please do your own research. I consulted a professional herbalist and nutritionist about this. So I would not recommend necessarily just, you know, taking my word for it. I would do your own research or consult an herbalist, a professional herbalist or nutritionist, or somebody who is able to verify this information. So that's some of the things I'm doing. And then there are other minerals and crystals that can really help as well. Citrine is really good for confidence and courage and will. So that's a great stone to use in terms of supporting your kidneys as well, because you really want, they're working really hard. And so we have to nourish them as well as tonify them, because they're going to continue to keep processing toxins out of our body. Absolutely. So those are just some of the things. And of course, Reiki for everything, all the time. And if you are in a position to be giving Reiki, if you're attuned to Reiki, especially if you're attuned to Reiki 2 and above, you are able to give distance Reiki to people, and this is proven to be essential. I just participated in a circle, a virtual circle last night, and I had one of the darkest moments I had yesterday in a really, throughout this whole process, and I woke up this morning elated. Now, part of that is because of the portal opening and so many people around the globe already preparing and participating in these meditations and gathering their resources energetically, so you can really feel it and tap into that. So kidneys, take care of them. It's essential. They're doing so much work, and you don't get that essence back. You don't. It's not something that you can refill. That's a cup you can't refill. You get a certain amount of life force when you're born, and that's what you get. And so take care of what you have left. And fear is like one of the best ways to just drain it right out of you. So whatever you're doing that's stimulating your fear and keeps your mind in that place, keeps running around the fear and being scared, and it's okay to feel that way. But if you stay there, just know you're just draining your life essence. It's just leaking right out of you. And we need our kidneys right now. Okay, so this is the astrology. Okay, the astrology for today. Jupiter and Pluto conjunct. So when Jupiter, what it does, it expands. This is a dilation. This portal is opening. It's opening big, and it's conjuncting with Pluto. Pluto is the Lord of Death, coming through and excavating and digging deep and getting to the bottom, the deepest, darkest bottom, at the bottom of the well, really, and pulling it up to the light. 25 degrees of Capricorn, you know, it's, I should just read the Sabian symbol, because I think it's really important to understand the archetypal symbolism of this moment. So the symbol for 25 degrees Capricorn, the Sabian symbol, is a store filled with precious Oriental rugs. The idea that you're using the cultural and artistic processes as a means to enhance your personal comfort. Okay, right? Can you feel, you know, the way that I've been envisioning this is literally Pluto has been pulling the rug out from under us, literally pulling it out. And now that Jupiter's here, it's just a dilation. It is opening this window in which to finally, it's going to be the full pulling the rug out from under. Material, so I'm just going to read some of the notes. Material yet aesthetic aspect of the benefits a society can bring to its members. Now this is really important. To the elite, these are not my words, this is in my Dane Rudger book of the astrological mandala. To the elite, society offers the relative comfort of beautiful rugs so that they may meet the universe protected by and securely established on the achievements of those who keep the cultural symbols alive. Now, however you want to identify the words the elite, what's happening right now is literally the rug being pulled out from under all of us, but specifically those who have benefited off of those they have stood on, because that's the thing about the rug, right? It's a foundation. It's a foundation for cultural understanding, obviously, prayer mat, a rug, but it's also, it's a foundation. It's something that you stand on. It's something that you kneel on. That aspect that we've become comfortable and accustomed to and have enjoyed in some ways is literally being pulled out from under us. And now that Jupiter's there, like I said, it's a dilation. This is a birthing process in some ways because the portal is opening huge. Now let's look at where the sun is today. The sun, 15 to 16 degrees Aries. Nature spirits are seen at work in the light of the sunset. Attunement to the potency of invisible forces of nature, an invitation to open the mind to the possibility of approaching life in a holistic, intuitive manner. This is where the sun is. And then our moon is in late Leo as well. I actually thought about just posting my notes about the Sabian symbols because they are all so incredible today. I can't go into them here. The other big transit that's happening is that Venus in 0 degrees Gemini is trine to Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius. So take that for what you will. Venus is just coming off of her conjunction with the Pleiades, which was another gateway with the Pleiades star cluster. And they are often thought about in these circles, Starseed Lightworker circles, the Pleiades, and many indigenous cultures, almost all of them. There is a mythos attached to the Pleiades being part of our human lineage. And as Saturn is sitting at 0 degrees Aquarius, you know, solidifying this move into the age of Aquarius, there's so much support. There is so much backup for what's happening right now. And it's really easy to get sucked into the fear and the panic as we look at the numbers rising, as we feel the strain and the conflict with the polarization. It becomes more unavoidable every day. And if you're feeding that, you know, like I said, your life essence just leaking right out of you and you can't get that back. So it's really important to cut that off at the pass as much as you can. So Jupiter and Pluto conjuncting. Last time they did that was in 1981, November 1st, 1981. They are in Libra, directly, exactly square to where they are now. It was 25 degrees of Libra. So there's some interesting things going on there. You know, I was a very small toddler at that time, so I can't really speak to that in terms of what's going on. But what I will say is Ivanka Trump was born during that, like, I think maybe that day. There's the Cold War that was happening. There was a lot of stuff happening, and in like I said, directly square to where they're conjunct now in Capricorn. Libra is the scales of balance, balanced relationships, symmetry, justice, fairness. Those kinds of things are the Libra archetype. Capricorn, structure, tradition, governments, institutions. It is the engine of nature herself. It is the material aspect that makes up the entire world around us, and that includes a culture, absolutely. And so with Pluto, has been at this degree now for weeks and has been excavating and digging up all the garbage and all the shit at the bottom about these cultural refinement and the rugs, the precious rugs that we've all been standing in, is just going to pull it out from under us. With Jupiter, it's going to make it it's going to expand it. Absolutely. The moon's going to move into Virgo today, and I think that's really going to help us emotionally start to put some pieces where they belong, and to be very, very focused internally about being organized with ourselves, our emotions, purifying ourselves, cleansing ourselves, being meticulous about where things are supposed to go emotionally within us. Absolutely. These are all really good aspects that we need right now. So this is why this portal, this is why this global meditation is happening today. Okay, so that's all this. This is the one thing that I really wanted to talk about, and I actually have some pictures to show you. So I want to talk about why it's so important to connect to the crystal grid of the earth right now. And if this is a concept that's new to you, don't worry, I'm going to explain it. And if it's something that you're familiar with, maybe this little chemistry lesson will show you exactly why it's so important, because it's essential. It's essential that we do this in a very physical, energetic way. We have to tap into the earth, and this really can be done by literally going outside and touching the ground, meditating by sitting on the ground, and visualizing yourself. Now, there's a chakra that's below your root chakra. It's called the Earth Star. This chakra will allow you to connect to the core of the earth and to the crystal grid of the earth. Okay, so the crystal grid, it can seem kind of, yeah, woo. It's woo, right? Like, what the hell does that even mean? Okay, what it means is that as the earth is ascending from a 3D structure, which is where we all live, to a 5D structure, which is unity consciousness. It is light. It is outside of duality. It is, duality doesn't exist because it's, we moved beyond that because it's a consistent experience of love and light. The thing about light is that it doesn't function. It functions in a way where photons move in a wave, and they have a frequency. Electromagnetic radiation across the whole spectrum does this, but it doesn't respond to the same way as matter does to the idea of duality and positive negative charge. There is connection with magnetics, but that's a different conversation. So why is it important to connect to the crystal grid? So let's look at some pictures. Okay, here we go. This is a basic carbon atom, right? You look in the middle here. These are the protons and the protons and the neutrons in the core, the nucleus of the atom. These are the electrons. Now, the carbon atom is the basic fundamental building block for all organic life. Okay, it's a very strong. It is able to bind to things very strongly because it has so atoms. Okay, this is going to be this is going to be a chemistry lesson. I'll do my best here. Atoms will bond with each other and share electrons in something called a covalent bond, because electrons, like the natural tendency is to fill this outer shell with 8 electrons. And so what atoms will do is they will bind to other atoms that allow them to share electrons in a way that both of the atoms, when they connect, both get 8 electrons in their outer shell. So carbon has 4 in its outer shell. So carbon connects to a lot of things. It's the basis of organic life. It is the basis of us as organic life. Okay, now when we talk about the crystal structure, there's one template first that's called the diamond core. What is a diamond? Well, diamond is a structure, a crystalline structure. Here's a diamond structure. All it is carbon atoms. Diamond is carbon atoms connected to each other in a way that is so strong, that is what makes diamond one of the hardest substances on the planet, right? Because when a carbon atom connects to another carbon atom, they're able to bond. Their covalent bond is so strong because they're able to share their electrons and create a full outer shell of 8 electrons. And so diamond is a crystalline structure of carbon atoms connected to each other. Now, what is diamond? Diamond is an incredible insulator. Heat, it can take an incredible amount of heat because the bonds are so strong. Now, what it is not is electrically conductive, because there's no free electrons, because they're all bound together in this bond, right? So you have a diamond structure that is incredibly strong, is made out of organic material, which is carbon, and it does not conduct electricity, but it makes an incredible insulator for heat. Now, this is one aspect. The diamond, from a metaphysical aspect, to think about diamond core structure. When you hear, especially Magenta Pixie, she's got, her material is amazing, and she talks a lot about the diamond core structure. Now, what does this allow us to do when we energetically connect to this template? It allows us to take our bodies, well, and the earth, right? If we connect to this structure energetically through our own energy system to the earth, who is already doing this, it's already happening. When we connect to her, she provides the template for us to hold an incredible amount of heat. And what is heat? Heat's just the energy that's released from a chemical reaction, or from light. You know, light provides an incredible amount of heat in the form of energy, in the form of heat. So we, as a diamond core structure with these carbon atoms, so we're still talking about organic material because we're talking about carbon atoms, all right? Carbon atoms. And so when we connect to the diamond core structure of the earth, we are connecting our organic body to a crystal structure, a solid crystal structure that is one of the strongest structures on the face of the planet, right? And it's just carbon atoms. So when we connect to that energetically, that allows us and the earth to be able to hold an incredible amount of energy. We can't transmit it. It's not conductive to electricity because there's no free electrons that can move because they're all bound together, but it allows us to hold so much energy, right? There we go. That's one aspect of tapping into the crystalline structure of the earth, because she's already doing this, right? And this is part of what needs to happen to move to a different density, because we at this point can take in and transmute so much more energy when we have a crystalline structure. And diamond is the intermediary between this and quartz, which is what I'm going to get to next. Okay, so that, I hope that makes sense, that how tapping into the diamond core structure energetically from the earth is supporting our ability to hold an incredible amount of energy that's coming in. And because as we move to fifth density, that is what we are able to do, is hold more energy. And if you follow like astrophysics or cosmology or anything, it's also been shown that our solar system within the galaxy is, you know, because everything is also rotating around the center of the galaxy as well, including our solar system. And the area that we're in is moving out of this protective, like, magnetic cloud. And so we're bombarded with higher levels of cosmic radiation just as a result of our movement through the galaxy. And this can trigger all kinds of stuff as we are being exposed. Our whole solar system is being exposed to higher amounts of energy. And so if you know anything about solar activity and solar flares, when we get solar flares, the Earth's magnetic field jostles around in order to protect us. But then you start to see that there are all kinds of effects that happen as a result of this solar activity and the magnetic readjustment. So tapping into the crystal structure, really important. Now, as we move forward, that's organic, right? So oh man, somebody's mowing their lawn. I'm so sorry if you can hear that. I have no control. It's really distracting. So next, we're going to move on to quartz, because when we talk about the crystalline structure of the earth, we have the diamond core template, which is carbon, and then we have quartz crystal, which is the most abundant crystal mineral in the earth. And if you use crystals for your energy work or anything like that, or even if you don't, if you're just into the fact that they're used in so much of our mobile and cellular technology and computers, quartz crystal is an incredible amplifier. So what is quartz? It's silicon dioxide. So this is a silica atom. It is, as you can see, has a lot more electrons, has more shells around its nucleus. It has higher atomic mass, silica. It is not organic necessarily. It's not carbon. It is a metal. I have to look at the periodic table again. So here's the silica. So it still does the same thing. So when we talk about silicon dioxide, what does that mean? That means a silica atom, just like this, will connect to two oxygen atoms. And let's see if I have that here. I do. Silicon dioxide. This is the molecule of quartz, silicon dioxide. So you have one silicon atom that's connected to two oxygen atoms. And you can see here that sometimes there's one oxygen atom between two silica atoms, because they provide, everything has the right ratio of electrons in their outer shell in order to have a strong covalent bond and bond together. Now, if you see here, like, this is kind of like how water, when water turns to ice and crystallizes, it expands and creates these molecules that have a lot of space, which is why water becomes less dense when it becomes ice and floats in water, because there's a lot more space in between the crystals of the molecules, the way that they connect to each other. So here's quartz crystal, silicon dioxide, the most abundant mineral in the earth. Again, what is quartz able to do? It has something called a piezoelectric effect. It also is incredibly insulating. It is not exactly conductive electricity, but what piezoelectric means basically is that there is the effect of an electrical conduction on the surface of these molecules that mimic an electrical conduction and a movement of electricity when these molecules are exposed to what? Incredible pressure, other kinds of physical stress, and an incredible amount of heat. So when quartz is exposed to these kinds of pressures in some way, shape, or form, it has the effect of looking like an electrical conduction, but it's happening on the outside of the molecule. This is the most abundant mineral in the earth, right? Silicon dioxide. This is ultimately where we're headed. And if you are a starseed or an indigo, silica in your body is something that is essential. And you actually are born with more silica within your blood system if you are a starseed or an indigo, because you are able then to connect to the quartz crystal and the crystalline grid a lot easier because of that. And it's really easy for things like Wi-Fi and electromagnetic frequencies to destroy the silica in your bloodstream. So that's not something that I've seen scientific research about. That is just something that comes from the literature about starseeds. But this is chemistry right here, the silicon dioxide. So when we tap into so the diamond core structure is carbon. It's like an intermediary. When we get to tapping into the quartz crystal structure of the earth, this is where electrical conductivity is able to happen, at least on some level, on the surface of the molecules. And this is why quartz crystal is an incredible amplifier, because once you are able to apply some sort of physical stress, so when you hold your quartz crystal, when you're doing energy work or Reiki, that can be considered, as far as I can tell, that can be considered the external pressure that that creates that piezoelectric effect. And so when you're using your quartz as a tool energetically and you're giving energy to it, for instance, through Reiki, that is what is causing the piezoelectric effect. So when we tap into the crystal grid of the earth, when we're tapping into the quartz crystal grid of the earth, she's naturally holding this for us. And this is how she's going to ascend to 5D, because she's able to naturally hold the energy that carbon structures of organic life like we have will break down almost immediately when exposed to higher levels of heat and radiation, whereas diamond and in quartz do not do that. And with quartz, you have electrical conductivity on the surface of the molecule. So energy can move through quartz as a result of physical stresses or heat or energy inputted into the molecule itself. So that is like a real basic chemistry breakdown of why the crystalline structure is so important. And I feel like that I want to, there's no way that I could have made this any shorter, because really it takes a lot more information to explain like how all of these molecules fit together, and the basis of chemistry and inorganic chemistry is going to be essential and already is essential in terms of understanding our evolution as organic beings. But when we say tapping into the crystal grid of the earth, it is more than just like a woo-woo idea. There is an actual basis in chemistry and physical reality and energetics why that is important, because the reality is that these structures can hold energy and insulate against energy as well. And that's something that we need to be able to do as we actually ascend, because ascending spiritually also means ascending, and ascending into spiritually means we're ascending into the fifth density, and fifth density is more light. And in order to do that, we have to have the structures in place. And so if you're a starseed or an indigo specifically, you already have these structures in your blood. And so there are ways, as far as I can tell, there are ways to supplement. There are certain things that you can take to increase the silica, because this is how we're going to be able to hold the energy. And I do feel like that what's happening with this virus, obviously, if you're compromised in any way, physically, you're not going to be able to hold more light. You're just not going to be able to. And regardless of what you think about, like the larger context of that, you know, who's able to hold light and why and blah, 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 it doesn't really matter. The point is, and I can say that because I've lost people. I've lost somebody very close to me in my family. So, and I know that he has fulfilled his mission as part of this awakening. And I know that for a fact. But what we're engaging in right now is being able to get into, and the earth is able to provide this. She's already there. She's primed. She's got quartz all through her. And we are able to, if we can energetically tap into this template, it's going to support us physically and energetically as we go through this process. It's really important. So it's not just like this woo-woo concept, although it is based, you know, this information has come in through channels and telepathy and things like that. It's not necessarily something you're going to find, you know, in a peer-reviewed research article. But what you can do is educate yourself about chemistry so you can understand what that actually means. And it means that when we have these crystalline structures and these templates within ourselves, we're able to hold more light and more energy. And we're actually, especially with quartz, we're able to move electric. It's conductive to a certain extent. It's piezoelectric. You can look it up and what that means. So, and that's the effect that makes quartz so invaluable to our mobile technologies and computer processors and all that kind of stuff, because that's how signals move. And so the signals also move through the quartz in our, you know, in our own body in the silica. So, okay, that's so much information. I hope that you find this really helpful. Please reach out if you have any questions. Comment below about anything that interests you. Commenting, even an emoji, helps the algorithm and get this information out. Everything you need will be in the description box about how to get a hold of me. 4/4 portal. We're doing it, guys. We're totally doing it. So I hope that you find some good ways to interact with your communities today. And I'll see you on the other side. Take care.